Alrighty everyone, welcome back. Happy Friday everybody. I hope you're all having an amazing week so far and preparing for the weekend. There's a lot of things going on with Disney and Lucasfilm to this day, given that we know that John, George, and Dave are very well prepared for what they are doing with Star Wars Ahsoka and Ahsoka Season 2 and Mando Season 4 as well. Those projects are going to be the very beginning of really being all zero Kathleen Kennedy projects, and Ahsoka is going to be the first one that debuts by this August. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support, and let's get right into this. Now, we know that Mark Hamill has been very much direct and talkative with the fans lately, ever since he debuted in technically not just the Book of Boba Fett, but also in Mando Season 2. He helped out with Graham Hamilton and a lot of others that actually played a very large role in bringing Luke Skywalker back in the best way possible through deepfake technology. Now, I always say this, that when we look at, Graham Hamilton, he really did a really good job with Luke. Now, the thing about Mark Hamill is that he had a couple of things to say, specifically about everything related to John, Dave, Kathleen Kennedy, Mando Season 3, a lot of new truths coming forward to the fans, and really shedding more light on exactly what really happened with Mando Season 3 and the whole Luke and Grogu dynamic and more. Now, with that being all put out there, with actor Mark Hamill promoting what John and Dave have planned for the future of The Mandalorian recently, Hamill was able and eventually to admit the truth to the entire fandom about what John and Dave were forced to do, as it turns out, with Season 3 of Mando. Hamill stated the following: "So the thing that I never understood was, with Mando or the Book of Boba Fett, whatever, I always get those mixed up because of that one episode in Boba. When Grogu stays at Luke's, why on earth did he leave and go back to Din? It's like my character was just used and abused, and I can assure that was not John and Dave's plan on their own. They were met with creative differences for their third season of Mando. John and Dave knew going in they wanted to give Luke a break anyway to keep this mysticism in place. But what they were told to do by those like Kathy and others was that Grogu should abandon Din and stay away from him, and stay, of course, with Luke Skywalker. That was the initial plan, to keep Grogu and Luke together. That was ripped apart by those like Kathy, and the whole concept of Luke would just be forgotten." Now, basically, guys, what Mark Hamill is saying is that, for those of you that might be a little bit confused, is that when we enter into Mando Season 3 and we find that Grogu is with Din and has not even visited Luke again, and how Luke is just this afterthought, that was all Kathleen Kennedy, alright? This was actually pressed upon in the later episode of the Book of Boba Fett as well. This was all Kathleen Kennedy-driven stuff, as well as Robert Rodriguez, who was an executive producer in the Book of Boba Fett. Now, the thing about this, too, that fans really need to realize is that it really comes across more vividly now that Kennedy does have a very big problem with Luke Skywalker. And the reason why I'm so very excited about Ahsoka and Ahsoka Season 2 is that she's going to have zero involvement, or already has zero involvement with those projects. We know that Mark Hamill signed his signature on the set of the first season of Ahsoka, which could very well spell a very big hint that Luke is coming back in Ahsoka Season 1. But we haven't heard all that much. What we have heard is that he's going to be a big influence in Season 2 and Mando Season 4. But moving on to what's more important here is that Mark Hamill really putting it out there that that was all Kathleen Kennedy driven, alright? Really kind of just moving away from Luke in the Book of Boba Fett and moving away from Luke in the Mando Season 3 installment, and having that Din and Grogu dynamic come back so rapidly. Moving on to the next thing here, Hamill goes on to elaborate this was not John and Dave's plan in sight, for the Book of Boba and Mando 3. I know John and Dave very well, and they personally told me it was best to keep Grogu and Luke together, at least for Mando Season 3, to actually make Mando Season 2 hold more value, the ending specifically, and to take a break from Grogu and then build things up for Din to have a reunion sometime later with maybe a different season or a different show with Grogu when he's been trained with Luke. This was the idea that John and Dave had going in, and it just didn't work out that way. Kathy felt that Grogu is the star of the show and drags in the audience. I would beg to differ. I think if you use too much Grogu and too many money shots, as I like to call them, of Grogu, it can grow quite old for a while. Now guys, look, I think Mark Hamill is kind of making an interesting point here, is that Mando as its own should not necessarily be the Grogu show, or just all about Grogu, what he calls money shots. And I can see where Mark Hamill's coming from in some areas. Look, Grogu's an interesting character, I will agree. And there's a lot of room for that character to grow. That's what's so exciting and interesting about that character, is that you can literally watch this character grow because of how young he is. And they can explore this in different eras, be it post-episode 9 material, or, you know, sequel trilogy material if they really want to go that route. But the thing that really kind of puts this more clearly is that Mark Hamill is actually putting it out there that John and Dave wanted Luke and Grogu to stay together at least throughout Mando Season 3 and the end of the Book of Boba Fett, and really kind of leave Din alone for a while, to really kind of have a big reunion with Grogu, perhaps in Ahsoka or in Mando Season 4 as an example. That would have been more of a bigger impact, guys, in my opinion. Moving on, he goes on to conclude, but I have been in conversations with what they have planned for Mando Season 4, and it's just outstanding. I can say that without exaggeration. I promise, it's going to be something else. They are starting all over again in a way, and in a good way, I mean. So that's interesting about what Mark Hamill says about them starting over in a good way, and if you look at the end of Mando Season 3, it does make sense, because we see that it almost feels like a reset. You know, they're abandoning that whole concept of saving Mandalore, of really getting tied up with Moff Gideon, and that whole side of the story. That really seems like it's all wrapped up now. And you have Din and Grogu just at peace, hanging out at home, and it's a fresh start. That's basically the overall concept. And so that's why I think Mando Season 4 has a lot of, you know, elements going for it that could very well just start things over, like Mark Hamill's saying here. Now we know that Legends is going to be a very big influence on Mando Season 4, Ahsoka Season 1 and 2, and stuff around those lines. We also know that Dave Filoni is going to be writing more related to the 4th season of Mando, not just Jon Favreau, which would be even all the more exciting. So there's a lot of things going on for Kathleen Kennedy, given that she has little to no creative power now, only with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew as it stands currently, and that's a good thing, by the way. Don't mess with John and Dave's stuff. That's all I ask for. So anyways, guys, I would love to hear what you all have to say about what Mark Hamill had to say below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night